The Judgment. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council stretched like a living cathedral, its crystalline walls pulsing with the light of 1,000 distant stars. Ambassador Maya Chen stood alone at the center of the speaking platform, a solitary human figure surrounded by representatives of over 300 alien civilizations. The 7 High Counselors, representing the founding species of the Galactic Concord, observed her from their elevated dais with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to undisguised contempt. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, Maya began, her voice steady, despite the weight of humanity's future resting on her shoulders. Earth extends its deepest gratitude for this audience. For centuries, we have wondered if we were alone in the cosmos. Now we stand before you, eager to join your community of worlds and contribute to the greater good of galactic civilization. The Archon of the Lydia, a being composed of swirling plasma contained within an ornate exoskeleton, spoke first. We have observed your broadcasts for nearly 2 centuries. Ambassador, your species has spent more of its recorded history engaged in warfare than in peace. The universal translator rendered the Archon's harmonic tones into flat, emotionless speech. No other species admitted to the Concord has demonstrated such persistent aggression. Maya had anticipated this criticism. Earth's history was indeed marked by conflict, but also by remarkable resilience and growth. Respected Archon, through conflict, we have forged cooperation. Our diversity of thought and perspective has driven innovation at unparalleled rates. We have overcome environmental catastrophes, eliminated poverty, and developed sustainable energy systems that is precisely what concerns us, interrupted the Merisian overseer, a collective intelligence housed within a gelatinous form that rippled as it spoke. Your species advances most rapidly during periods of conflict. Your technological progress accelerated dramatically during your world wars and periods of international tension. In the Earth Delegation's observation chamber, Director Elijah Kamal of the United Earth Defense Force clenched his jaw. As the military representative, he had warned the diplomatic team about the Council's likely reaction. Now his concerns were proving justified. A hive mind representative of the Zithor leaned forward, its compound eyes reflecting the chamber's ambient light. We have analyzed your species' psychological profiles extensively. Your inherent competitiveness presents an unacceptable risk factor. Even your cooperative ventures are framed as competitions, races to space, economic dominance, athletic contests. With respect, Maya countered, competition drives excellence. Our competitive nature has allowed us to overcome challenges that might have otherwise led to our extinction. We've united our once divided planet, eliminated disease, and Director Kamal watched as the council members exchanged glances through their neural interfaces, a silent conversation humans couldn't access. He recognized the look from countless military negotiations. They had already made their decision. The Grand Sovereign of the Altari, the senior counselor whose silicon-based form seemed almost statue-like, raised an appendage for silence. Ambassador Chen, we do not dispute humanity's achievements. Your adaptability is remarkable, your creativity commendable. But these qualities, combined with your aggressive tendencies, represent a destabilizing influence on galactic peace. Maya felt her heart sink. What are you saying, Sovereign? The Council has voted unanimously. Earth is classified as a Category X civilization, technologically advanced, but culturally unsuitable for integration. A quarantine boundary will be established at the edge of your solar system. You may develop within those confines, but any attempt to venture beyond will be considered an act of aggression against the Concord and all its member species. Shock rippled through the Earth delegation. Dr. Sanjay Patel, their lead scientist, stepped forward to join Maya. How long will this quarantine last? What benchmarks must we meet for reconsideration? The Myresian surface rippled in what the humans would later learn was an expression of amusement. Based on evolutionary models of similar species, approximately 50,000 years. 50,000 years, longer than human civilization, had existed. It was effectively a permanent sentence, condemning humanity to a cosmic prison within their own solar system. This is outrageous, Dr. Patel objected. You're condemning us based on a history we've moved beyond. At least allow us to present evidence of our. The decision is final, the Grand Sovereign stated. You will be escorted back to your vessel and return to Earth. This session is concluded. As security drones surrounded the Earth delegation, Director Kamal moved beside Ambassador Chen. I warned the Council would fear us, he said quietly. This isn't fear, Maya replied, her diplomat's composure finally cracking. It's prejudice. It's both, Kamal corrected. And they just made the biggest mistake in their history. 6 months after the Council's judgment, the leaders of Earth gathered in the subterranean chambers beneath New Geneva. The room was silent as Ambassador Chen completed her report on the quarantine specifications. The Council had placed automated sentinel platforms at strategic points throughout the solar system, creating an impenetrable barrier that would destroy any vessel attempting to breach the quarantine. So that's it, President Alvarez of the United Earth Federation asked. We're prisoners in our own solar system, with no chance of appeal for 50 millennia. That's what they want, Director Kamal said, rising from his seat. He was no longer just the military representative, but had been appointed director of Earth's strategic response. But there's something they don't understand about humans. And what's that, Director? Asked the Chinese premier. We don't accept no for an answer. Kamal activated the central holographic display. The Council revealed more than they intended during our brief contact. They showed us faster than light travel, advanced materials, energy technologies we've only theorized. More importantly, they showed us their arrogance. They believe their technology is so superior that we could never overcome it. Dr. Patel joined Kamal at the display. We've been analyzing the data collected from our brief exposure to Council technology. Their Sentinel platforms utilize a form of quantum entanglement for communication and detection. It's advanced, but not incomprehensible. You're suggesting we can bypass the quarantine? President Alvarez asked. Not immediately, Kamal replied. But the Council made a critical error in their judgment of humanity. They've given us something we've lacked for centuries. A common purpose. Every nation, every corporation, every brilliant mind on Earth now has one goal, breaking the chains they've placed around us. Project Phoenix, Dr. Patel said, bringing up classified schematics on the display. A comprehensive initiative to develop technologies that will eventually allow us to bypass the Council's quarantine. We've already identified several promising approaches. The Council believes we're trapped, Kamal continued. They expect us to either resign ourselves to our fate or destroy ourselves in futile attempts to break free. Instead, we'll use this time to advance at our own pace, without their interference or restrictions. And when we finally emerge from our solar system, we'll be ready to claim our place among the stars, whether they welcome us or not. President Alvarez studied the faces around the table, seeing determination replace the despair of recent months. How long? She asked simply. Dr. Patel and Director Kamal exchanged glances. With global cooperation and resources, 20 years to develop the technology. Another 10 to build the first ships and train their crews. Alvarez nodded slowly. I'm authorizing unlimited resources for Project Phoenix, effective immediately. Humanity will not accept exile. We will not fade away into cosmic irrelevance. We will reach the stars, and when we do, the Council will learn what humans are truly capable of. 17 years later, Dr. Patel stood in the heart of the Ceres Research Facility, the largest laboratory ever constructed in the asteroid belt. Around him, hundreds of scientists and engineers worked in perfect coordination, their efforts focused on the massive ring structure at the center of the chamber. Quantum field stabilizing at 89%, reported Dr. Lyra Okafor, the brilliant physicist who had developed the theoretical framework for what they now called the Bifrost drive. Still not enough for a stable transition. Try modulating the containment field with the harmonic pattern we observed from the Council Sentinel scanning beam, Patel suggested. One advantage of the quarantine was that they had plenty of Council technology to study from a distance. The simulation shifted, energy patterns contracting before stabilizing into a perfect torus. Field integrity at 97%, Dr. Okafor announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. This could actually work. Patel allowed himself a small smile, prepared the prototype for testing tomorrow, and informed Director Kummel, Phase 1 is complete. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Kummel received Patel's message in the Strategic Response Command Center. The aging military leader permitted himself a moment of satisfaction before addressing his team. Begin Phase 2, he ordered. Within hours, the prototype Bifrost drive was connected to an unmanned probe. The test was broadcast on screens worldwide as Earth's united leadership watched. The device itself looked deceptively simple, a ring of specialized materials housing technology, inspired by Council designs, but built with human innovation. In theory, this will create a quantum tunnel through space-time. Patel explained to the global audience, allowing instantaneous travel while remaining undetectable to the Council's monitoring systems. Energy readings climbed steadily as the ring began to glow with an unearthly light. Inside the ring, space itself seemed to shimmer and distort. Then, with a flash that momentarily overloaded the cameras, the probe vanished. Silence fell over monitoring stations worldwide. Then communication officers began shouting simultaneously. Signal acquired. The beacon is transmitting from beyond Neptune's orbit, outside the quarantine zone. The room erupted in cheers. Patel closed his eyes briefly, overwhelmed by the moment. Director Kummel's weathered face appeared on the main screen. How soon until we can scale it for a ship? He asked. 6 months for a prototype, perhaps a year before we can equip our first vessel, Patel replied. Kummel nodded. You'll have whatever resources you need. This changes everything. Exactly 1 year later, Earth launched its first faster-than-light capable ship, the TSV Prometheus. Built in secret beneath the lunar surface, it carried a crew of 30 and slipped past the Council quarantine using the Bifrost drive technology. At Kummel's insistence, they kept their first journey modest, a nearby star system with no Council presence, just far enough to prove the concept. As the Prometheus prepared for its historic journey, Captain Sophia Lee addressed her crew. Today, we prove that no species has the right to limit human potential. Today, we take our first step back to the stars. And from this day forward, humanity will forge its own path in the galaxy, not as supplicants begging for admission to the Council, but as pioneers creating our own destiny. The Prometheus activated its Bifrost drive, creating a shimmering portal in space. Without hesitation, it entered the portal and vanished from Earth's solar system, the first human vessel to break the chains of quarantine and begin humanity's secret return to the stars. The Exodus. 30 years after the Prometheus's historic flight, Admiral Sophia Lee stood on the observation deck of the massive space station Artemis, watching as another colony ship prepared to depart. The station orbited a red dwarf star 70 light-years from Earth, well beyond the Council's monitoring network. Below, on the third planet of the system, officially designated Nova Terra, the lights of the first major human settlement beyond Sol glittered like earthbound stars. That's the 15th colony ship this month, noted Director General Kummel, now in his 80s but still directing humanity's expansion from the shadows. Project Diaspora is proceeding ahead of schedule. The Council remains oblivious, Admiral Lee asked. Completely. Our Bifrost technology leaves no trace they can detect, and we've established outposts in systems the Council considers uninteresting or inaccessible. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll have dozens of self-sufficient colonies across this sector of the galaxy. The strategy had been brilliant in its simplicity. Rather than challenging the Council directly, humanity had simply gone around them. Establishing a growing network of colonies and star systems the Council had deemed unworthy of attention. Each colony focused on self-sufficiency first, then specialized production to support further expansion. The Vanguard fleet reports they've surveyed another 20 systems suitable for colonization, Lee said. And the research outpost in the Epsilon Eridani system has made a fascinating discovery. Camel raised an eyebrow. Oh, ruins. Definitely not council architecture. The structures appear to be at least 100,000 years old, abandoned but with intact technology. Dr. Patil is heading there personally to investigate. Non-council technology, Kamal mused. That could change the game entirely. 6 months later, Dr. Patil stood amidst the alien ruins, marveling at their elegant design. Unlike the utilitarian council architecture, these structures seem to blend harmoniously with the natural environment. Most importantly, they contain technology the council didn't possess, or at least didn't use. We've managed to activate their power systems, reported Dr. Okafor, now leading the research team. The interface is remarkably intuitive, almost as if it was designed to be accessible to multiple species. Any indication of who built it? Patil asked. They called themselves the predecessors, according to the data archives we've accessed. They were a coalition of species that explored the galaxy long before the current council formed. From what we can tell, they followed a philosophy of guardianship rather than governance. They believed in helping younger species develop rather than controlling them. What happened to them? Unknown. The records indicate they departed this galaxy approximately 90,000 years ago, heading toward what they called the greater cosmos. They left these outposts behind deliberately, as gifts for species that might evolve later. Patil ran his hand along the control panel, which responded with a soft glow. They left us exactly what we need. Technology the Council doesn't control or understand. Within weeks, human scientists had begun reverse engineering the predecessor technology, integrating it with their own innovations. The results were transformative. More efficient energy systems, advanced materials, and, most critically, improvements to the Bifrost drive that allowed instantaneous communication across any distance without detection. As humanity's shadow empire grew, they began encountering other species that existed on the fringes of council space, species deemed too primitive or unimportant for membership. Many had been subjugated as client races, providing resources or labor to council worlds without receiving the benefits of full membership. On a newly established outpost near the Orion Nebula, Admiral Lee welcomed representatives from the Tellurian species, avian beings with iridescent plumage and a natural gift for navigation. The Council restricts our ships to local trade routes, explained First Navigator Kyrell. They claim it's for our protection, but in reality, they fear our navigational abilities might surpass their own. We've been waiting for an opportunity to break free from their influence. Perhaps we can help each other, Lee suggested. We need skilled navigators for our expansion, and you need allies who won't restrict your potential. As word spread quietly through the non-council worlds, more species began seeking contact with humans. Each brought unique perspectives and abilities, and each had reasons to resent the council's hierarchical structure that kept them permanently subordinate. In her office on Novaterra, now the capital of humanity's growing interstellar nation, Prime Director Amara Okafor, daughter of Lyra Okafor and successor to Kamal, received an urgent communication from the surveillance network. Madam Director, we've detected council activity in the Procyon system. They appear to be investigating the remains of a predecessor outpost. Okafor frowned. Procyon was uncomfortably close to several human colonies. Do they know we've been there? Uncertain, but they're conducting detailed scans of the surrounding space. It's possible they've detected trace signatures from our ships. Increase stealth protocols for all vessels in that sector and evacuate the research team from the Procyon outpost. We're not ready for direct contact yet, but fate had other plans. Just 3 days later, a distress signal reached Novaterra from a Tellurian trading vessel near the council border. This is Navigator Kyrell. Our ship has suffered catastrophic drive failure while transporting refugees from the Menkari system. Council patrol vessels are approaching. We have 32 children aboard. Please advise. The Menkeri, a species of amphibious beings with remarkable bioengineering skills, had been facing ecological collapse on their homeworld due to Council resource extraction. The humans had been helping relocate them secretly to a suitable planet within human-controlled space. Admiral Lee, now commanding the defense fleet, didn't hesitate. Deploy the Horizon and the Defiant to the coordinates. Standard rescue protocol. But if the Council ships threaten the Tellurian vessel, they are authorized to reveal themselves and provide protection. This could expose our entire operation, her first officer warned. We won't abandon children to make a point about secrecy, Lee replied firmly. That would make us no better than the Council. The human vessels arrived just as 2 Council patrol ships were attaching tractor beams to the disabled Tellurian craft. Using their advanced stealth systems, they approached undetected. Attention Council vessels, transmitted Captain Reza Khan of the Horizon. Release the Tellurian ship immediately. We are prepared to provide assistance to the disabled craft. The Council ships froze, their sensors suddenly detecting the 2 human warships that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Identify yourselves, demanded the Council commander. This is restricted space under Council jurisdiction. We are vessels of the Terran Alliance, Khan replied, using the official name of humanity's growing interstellar nation. The Tellurian ship requested assistance, which we are providing under the universal right of rescue. Terran. You're human. Impossible. Humans are quarantined in the Sol system. Evidently not, Khan replied dryly. Now release the Tellurian vessel, or we will be forced to demonstrate exactly how we feel about unjust restrictions. The Council ships hesitated, clearly unprepared for this situation. Finally, they disengaged their tractor beams. The Council will hear of this violation, the commander warned. We're counting on it, Khan responded, as his ships moved to assist the Tellurians. In fact, please deliver a message. The quarantine is over. Humanity has returned to the stars, and we've brought friends. News of the encounter spread rapidly through Council space. For the first time in decades, the High Council convened an emergency session to address what they termed the human problem. The Archon of the Lydio was apoplectic. How did they bypass our quarantine? Our Sentinel platforms report no breaches. Unknown, admitted the Zifar representative. But intelligence suggests they've established at least 30 colonies beyond Sol, possibly many more. They've also been contacting non-member species and sharing technology. Worse, added the Merisian overseer, they've discovered and activated predecessor technology, systems we deliberately left dormant due to their unpredictable nature. The Grand Sovereign considered this information with growing alarm. They must be contained before they destabilize the entire sector. Dispatch a diplomatic mission to Novaterra. Inform them that their expansion is unauthorized and must cease immediately. All colonies must be abandoned, and all ships must return to Sol. And if they refuse, asked the junior counselor. Then we will demonstrate why the Council has maintained peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years, the Sovereign replied grimly. The humans will learn their place, one way or another. As the Council prepared its ultimatum, humanity and its growing alliance of non-Council species braced for the coming confrontation. On Novaterra, Prime Director Okafor addressed the Terran Alliance Parliament. For 50 years, we've built our strength in secret, establishing colonies, developing technologies, and forming partnerships with other species who share our vision of a galaxy where all sentient beings can reach their full potential. The Council intended to confine us to our solar system forever, but instead, they merely gave us time to grow stronger without their interference. She paused, surveying the chamber filled with human representatives alongside delegates from a dozen allied species. The Council believes they can simply order us back into our cage. They are about to discover how profoundly they have misunderstood humanity. We do not seek conflict, but neither will we surrender our freedom. If the Council chooses confrontation, they will find that humans fight most fiercely when protecting not just ourselves, but our friends. The Parliament erupted in approval as humans and aliens alike rose to their feet. Among them stood aged veterans of the original Exodus, Director General Kamal, Admiral Lee, and Dr. Patel, watching as the seeds they had planted half a century earlier blossomed into a force that would forever change the galaxy. The Reckoning. The Council diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Terran Alliance's declared territory. It was an impressive ship, its crystalline hull gleaming with internal lights that pulsed in complex patterns, a display of technological superiority meant to intimidate. Waiting to greet it was a small delegation of human ships, led by the TSS Prometheus II, commanded by Admiral Reza Khan. Unlike the ostentatious Council vessel, the human ships were sleek and practical, their dark hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. Vessels built for function rather than display. Council vessel enlightened wisdom. This is Admiral Khan of the Terran Alliance. We've been expecting you. There was a pause before the Council diplomat responded. Admiral, I am emissary Trelvax of the Galactic Council. I bring a formal communication from the High Council to your leadership. We'll escort you to Nova Terra, Khan replied. Please maintain your current position while we establish a safe transit corridor. What Khan didn't mention was that the transit corridor was actually a carefully plotted route that would reveal little about human defensive capabilities or the full extent of their territory. The Council had underestimated humanity once. The Alliance wasn't about to give them accurate intelligence for a second mistake. On Nova Terra, Prime Director Okafor prepared to receive the Council delegation in the Grand Assembly Hall. Representatives from all 17 species that had joined the Terran Alliance were present, a deliberate demonstration that humanity hadn't simply escaped quarantine. They had built a coalition that challenged the Council's monopoly on interstellar governance. The Council emissary entered flanked by guards, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light dramatically. He paused, clearly surprised by the diversity of species present. Emissary Trelvax, Okafor greeted him formally. Welcome to Nova Terra. Prime Director, the emissary acknowledged stiffly. I come bearing the Council's response to your unauthorized expansion beyond Sol. Unauthorized by whom? Asked the Tellurian representative pointedly. The Council does not speak for all sentient beings in this galaxy. The emissary ignored the comment, focusing solely on Okafor. The Council has determined that humanity's actions constitute a severe violation of the quarantine established 50 years ago. You are hereby ordered to dismantle all colonies outside your home system and return all vessels to Sol within one standard galactic year. Compliance will result in a revaluation of Earth's status after a probationary period. A murmur of indignation rippled through the assembly. Okafor remained calm, studying the emissary thoughtfully. And if we decline, then the Council will be forced to take corrective action to enforce the quarantine, Trelvax stated. I am authorized to inform you that a Council enforcement fleet has already been mobilized. Dr. Ilara Patel, who had succeeded her father as Chief of Science, stepped forward. The Council condemned humanity without truly understanding us. You feared our competitive nature, our drive to overcome obstacles. Yet in the 50 years since your judgment, we've built something you never imagined possible. An alliance based on mutual respect and cooperation between species you dismissed as unimportant. The Council's decision was unanimous and binding. Trelvax insisted. No, Okafor corrected. It was arrogant and short-sighted. You believed your technology was so superior that we could never overcome your barriers. You were wrong. You believed your understanding of the galaxy was complete. You were wrong about that too. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Every species here has experienced the Council's prejudice, deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable, or simply not useful enough to merit equal treatment. The emissary's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. This is your formal response. Defiance. This is our response, Okafor said firmly. The Terran Alliance acknowledges the Council's historical contributions to galactic stability. We are prepared to establish diplomatic relations as equals and work together on matters of mutual concern. However, we categorically reject any claim of authority over our territories, our vessels, or our right to explore the galaxy. Then you leave the Council no choice, Trellvax warned. Remember that the consequences of resistance will fall on your people. After the emissary departed, the Alliance leadership convened an emergency session. Intelligence reports confirmed that a substantial Council fleet was indeed assembling near the border of Alliance space. Their main advantage is numbers, Admiral Khan explained, displaying the tactical projections. Their technology is more refined than ours in some areas, but we have innovations they've never encountered, particularly our Bifrost systems and the adapted predecessor technology. What about their claim that they want to avoid conflict? Asked the Menkuri representative. Dr. Patel shook her head. That's diplomatic posturing. The Council sees us as an existential threat to their authority. If other quarantine species learn that humans broke free and built an alliance, the entire foundation of Council power could collapse. Then we prepare for war, Okafor concluded grimly. But on our terms, not theirs. The first attack came 3 weeks later, targeting an outlying research station in a system the Alliance had only recently begun to develop. The Council force, 3 capital ships supported by numerous smaller vessels, expected minimal resistance from what they believed was a newly established outpost. Instead, they encountered a fully operational defense platform utilizing predecessor technology, which disabled 2 of their capital ships before they could even bring their weapons to bear. The 3rd Council vessel retreated in disarray, jumping back to Council space to report the unexpected defense capabilities. This pattern repeated across a dozen border systems. Council forces would attack what appeared to be vulnerable targets, only to face innovative defenses and unconventional tactics they hadn't anticipated. Human ships would appear from nowhere using their Bifrost drives, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before Council reinforcements could respond. Meanwhile, Alliance diplomats approached non-Council worlds, revealing the truth about humanity's successful resistance and offering alliance against Council dominance. Species that had existed under Council's shadow for millennia began to see an alternative, and many chose to side with the humans. The Council, accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority, found itself facing an opponent that fought asymmetrically, never engaging in direct confrontation where Council numbers would prevail, but striking at vulnerabilities and disappearing before retaliation. 6 months into what became known as the Liberation War, the Council launched a major offensive against what intelligence suggested was a primary human shipyard. They committed 1/3 of their total naval strength to the operation, determined to deal a decisive blow. The shipyard was indeed there, but so was the main Alliance battle fleet, hidden behind a predecessor-derived cloaking system. As the Council ships formed up for their attack run, Alliance vessels appeared behind and among them, their coordinated fire targeting propulsion and weapons systems rather than attempting to destroy the Council ships outright. This is Admiral Khan of the Alliance flagship Prometheus, broadcast on all frequencies as the battle raged. Council vessels, your ships are disabled and surrounded. We have no desire for unnecessary casualties. Power down your remaining weapons and prepare for boarding. It was the largest defeat the Council had suffered in over 1,000 years. 47 capital ships captured intact, along with their crews and, most importantly, their command codes and technical databases. But the war wasn't over. The Council, stunned by the reversal, retreated to consolidate their remaining forces for a desperate gamble, a direct assault on Sol itself. If they couldn't defeat the human colonies, they would hold Earth hostage. Alliance intelligence detected the massive fleet assembling. Every available Council warship was being recalled for what would clearly be an all-or-nothing attack on humanity's homeworld. In the war room on Novaterra, the Alliance leadership faced their greatest challenge. They're committing everything, Khan reported. Over 300 capital ships, plus support vessels. Even with our technological advantages, we can't match that firepower directly. We don't need to, said Director General Marcus Chen, grandson of Ambassador Maya Chen, who had faced the Council's judgment decades earlier. Earth isn't defenseless anymore. For 50 years, while humanity had expanded beyond the quarantine, Earth itself had not been idle. The entire solar system had been transformed into a fortress, with defenses hidden throughout the asteroid belt, within the moons of the gas giants, and in stealth platforms orbiting every planet. But if we reveal our full defensive capabilities at Sol, we lose the advantage of surprise for future engagements, Admiral Lee pointed out. Prime Director Okafor considered the options thoughtfully. Perhaps it's time for a different approach. The Council is committing to this attack out of desperation. They've never faced a serious military challenge before, and they're responding the only way they know how, with overwhelming force. What are you suggesting? Khan asked. That we offer them a way to save face, one last chance for diplomacy before they commit to a battle they might not win. The Council Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, a vast array of warships stretching across thousands of kilometers of space. At their center was the Council flagship Eternal Dominion, carrying the 7 High Counselors themselves, an unprecedented gathering outside Council space, indicating the existential importance they placed on this confrontation. Waiting for them was a single vessel, the original Prometheus, now 50 years old but still the symbol of humanity's first step back to the stars. On its bridge stood the aged figures who had begun this journey. Director General Kamal, now over 100 and sustained by life extension technology. Admiral Lee, her once black hair now silver. And Dr. Patel, his hands gnarled but his mind still sharp. Council vessels, transmitted Kamal. This is Director General Elijah Kamal of Earth. We request parley before any hostile action commences. After a tense silence, the Grand Sovereign himself responded. We will hear your surrender terms, human. Not surrender, Kamal corrected. Negotiation. I propose a direct meeting between your leadership and ours. Here, in the space between our forces. One vessel from each side. No weapons. A chance to resolve this conflict without further bloodshed. The Council leaders debated briefly before agreeing. What did they have to lose by hearing the humans out before crushing them? Hours later, in the conference room of a neutral vessel positioned between the opposing fleets, the architects of humanity's resurgence faced the Council leadership that had condemned them half a century before. The Grand Sovereign spoke first. Your resistance has been impressive, if futile. But surely you see that you cannot stand against the combined might of the Council. With respect, Sovereign, Kamal replied, this confrontation was never necessary. 50 years ago, you judged humanity too aggressive and unpredictable to join galactic society. Yet in the time since, we've built an alliance of 17 species based on mutual respect and cooperation, without a single war until you forced this one upon us. An alliance of malcontents and primitives, dismissed the Archon. An alliance, Admiral Lee countered, of species with potential you failed to recognize. The Tellurians' navigational abilities now guide our ships through regions you deemed impassable. The Menkeri's bioengineering has cured diseases that plagued Council worlds for centuries. The predecessors understood what you've forgotten. Diversity strengthens civilization. It doesn't threaten it. Dr. Patil activated a holographic display showing the full extent of the Alliance territory, far larger than the Council had realized. We've established self-sustaining colonies across 7 sectors, rediscovered technologies your Council deliberately suppressed, and built defense systems specifically designed to counter your tactics. This war can only end in mutual destruction. Or, Kamal suggested, it can end today with a new beginning. We propose a reorganization of galactic governance, not the elimination of the Council, but its transformation into a true forum of equals where all sentient species can contribute. Preposterous, sputtered the Merisian overseer. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. You would risk destabilizing the entire galaxy with this. democratization. The galaxy is already destabilized, Kamal pointed out. Half your member worlds have quietly expressed support for our alliance. They've lived too long under a system that preserves peace at the cost of progress. The Grand Sovereign's crystalline form pulsed with barely controlled emotion. And if we refuse these terms? Admiral Lee gestured toward the viewport, where the massive Council fleet hung in space. Then we will activate the Soul Defense Network. Your ships will be disabled or destroyed. Those that survive will return to a council that has lost all credibility with its member worlds. Either way, the old order ends today. You're bluffing, the Zitha representative said. Our scans detect nothing that could challenge our Armada. Dr. Paddle smiled slightly. 50 years ago, you believed humans could never escape your quarantine. You were wrong. 20 years ago, you believed we couldn't master predecessor technology. You were wrong. Perhaps consider the possibility that you're wrong about our defensive capabilities as well. To demonstrate, he activated a small control on his wrist device. Throughout the solar system, defense platforms that had been completely invisible to Council sensors suddenly revealed themselves. Hundreds of them, each equipped with weapons derived from predecessor technology. This is just one system, Kamal said quietly. We have 37 core worlds similarly defended. Is the Council's pride worth the lives of your people? For the first time in their long history, the Council leaders faced a force they could neither intimidate nor overpower. The Grand Sovereign's form dimmed slightly as it processed this new reality. What guarantees do we have that this new arrangement would protect the legitimate interests of Council worlds? The same guarantees we ask for ourselves, Kamal replied. Equal representation, mutual defense, shared knowledge, the right of all sentient beings to determine their own path. After hours of tense negotiation, a framework emerged, not a human victory or a Council surrender, but a genuine compromise. The Galactic Council would be reconstituted as the Interstellar Concord, with representation from all spacefaring species regardless of their technological development. No single group would hold veto power, and decisions would require broad consensus rather than the dictates of founding members. As the formal agreement was signed, Dr. Patel turned to Admiral Lee and Director General Kamal. 50 years, he said quietly. When they quarantined us, I thought I'd never live to see the stars again. And now humanity has helped reshape the galaxy, Lee replied, watching as Council representatives and alliance members cautiously began to mingle. Not through conquest, but by doing what humans have always done best, adapting, innovating, and bringing people together against common challenges. Kamal nodded, his aged face reflecting satisfaction rather than triumph. The Council feared our competitive nature, but they failed to understand that the greatest human competition has always been with ourselves. Our constant drive to build something better than what came before. 1 year later, Novaterra hosted the first full assembly of the Interstellar Concord. Representatives from over 300 species gathered in the newly constructed Unity Dome, including many who had previously been denied Council membership. Prime Director Okafor, now serving as Earth's representative to the Concord's Executive Committee, addressed the historic gathering. Today marks not just a new chapter in galactic governance, but a vindication of the belief that diversity breeds strength. 50 years ago, humanity was judged too unpredictable, too competitive for the stars. The Council feared that our drive to overcome challenges would destabilize their carefully ordered galaxy. She surveyed the assembled delegates, former Council members sitting alongside species that had joined the human alliance, and newly admitted civilizations experiencing interstellar politics for the first time. They were right about one thing: change can be destabilizing. But without change, there is no growth. Without challenge, there is no innovation. The old Council preserved a static peace. Together, we will build a dynamic one. In the audience, the last surviving members of the original Prometheus crew watched with pride. They had lived to see humanity not only break its chains, but help forge a new order, one that embraced the very qualities the Council had feared. Far beyond the formal proceedings, on worlds throughout the galaxy, the news spread. Species that had lived under Council restrictions for millennia found themselves suddenly free to develop their own potential. Civilizations that had been deemed too primitive for contact discovered they had valuable perspectives to offer. Technologies that had been suppressed as destabilizing were now shared openly, sparking a renaissance of innovation. And at the edge of what had once been Council space, a monument was erected on an uninhabited world. A simple stone obelisk inscribed with words in hundreds of languages. The human version read simply, "To those who would build walls around potential, remember Earth." Beyond the monument, ships from dozens of worlds gathered regularly, a fleet unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Not a force of conquest or control, but of exploration. Their mission, to venture into the uncharted regions beyond known space, seeking new civilizations and new knowledge. Their flagship, fittingly, was the Prometheus II, commanded by Captain Maya Chen, granddaughter of the ambassador who had once stood alone before the Council. On its maiden voyage beyond the boundaries of known space, she addressed her diverse crew. The Council feared humanity would bring chaos to the stars. Instead, we brought possibility. They feared our competitive spirit would spark conflict. Instead, it sparked cooperation more genuine than their enforced harmony ever achieved. She gestured toward the view screen, where unknown stars beckoned. Who knows what awaits us out there? New friends, new challenges, new wonders. Whatever we find, we face it not as Earth alone, but as part of something greater. A community of worlds united not by fear or control, but by the shared desire to reach our full potential, together. As the Prometheus engaged its Bifrost drive and disappeared into the unknown, it carried with it the legacy of humanity's greatest triumph, not the defeat of an enemy, but the creation of a future where no species would ever again be told they did not belong among the stars.